Mr. Rob Peterson, back in the day, you were just going down the street and this old lady had her purse stolen by some perverted weirdo, and he chased that MF down with his 4.4 speed, knocked him out with a quick left, got the purse back, gave it to the old lady, and then I don't know what happened after that, because he punched me too. Because he's just one BA MF, you know. That's all I know him for.
Rob Peterson and I, we were on a boat heading to Normandy, France, to fight the Germans. And while we were on the boat, I look over at him and I say, "Hey Peterson, where'd you get those scars on your hands?" And he says, "I got them in a fight a couple years back. You know, I didn't think much of it. You know, it's not uncommon. But we landed. Not much after that, and resistance was god-awful. Our men were being swathed down all around us. The Germans, they were ruthless in that attack, and we had no hope. We couldn't have fought them off. Peterson, though, he was a tenacious guy. He held strong. He did something I didn't expect. He got out of the boat and he grabbed a piece of wood that was laying in the water, a piece of old dry wood, and he threw it, landed straight in the middle of a pillbox. Exploded. Germans went flying everywhere. It was like something I'd never seen before. I mean, we didn't know what to think about it after that. But Peterson, he didn't even hesitate. He let out this bestial howl, like some sort of berserker rage, and he went running up the beachhead, tearing out everyone's entrails, American and German alike. You know, he didn't discriminate. I don't know what got him through that day, but it was something god-awful. And when he made it to the top of the beachhead, he went to the first pillbox, and he completely dismantled the German MG-42 within 2 or 3 seconds, and it was truly awe-inspiring. But I mean, after that, he literally ate the Germans' brains. I mean, it was like something out of some sort of sci-fi movie. I mean, it was insane, and I mean, we got hope from that. I mean, if we could have at least one person like that in our army, we knew the Germans didn't have anything on us in this war. We won that war thanks to Peterson and his very unorthodox methods of fighting.
I first met Rob Peterson. It was during the Great Depression. My family, we were going through some really hard times. I didn't have a job at the time. My wife was pregnant, which was a bit uplifting, and I don't know, she ended up having a miscarriage, and well, I was walking down the street, and I just saw a man standing there, and he's quite tall, you know, skinny, and I was walking, you know, my head down, depression, and when I walked by him, he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Son, I ain't never gonna give you up. I ain't never gonna let you down. I ain't never gonna run around and desert you." And those words stuck with me for weeks. Going to speakeasies and just places all around, just trying to think of something to do with those words. I wrote a song about those words. The song's about a man, a great man, and I named it "Never Gonna Give You Up." You probably know it from the Rick Astley remake in the mid-'80s, but that song was written basically for and about Rob Peterson.
Rob Peterson. Oh, I know that name. That's right. I first met him that fateful day. It was a Monday, April 11th, 1912, 8:30 in the morning, Southampton. I was getting ready to head to New York with my family. The Titanic's maiden voyage. I remember seeing that beautiful ship, hearing the seagulls, and I looked across as we were boarding, and I saw, loading onto the first deck, a man who was built like a locomotive, clad in the finest suit, had to be first class, no doubt about it. He was by himself, which confused me. I remember that night on board the ship we had dinner, and all I could think about was that face like an Adonis. I know a few days passed, and there were warnings of icebergs. They kept Peterson on full alert for some reason. Maybe he was related to the engineers or something. I don't really know. Then that night, I was having a stroll on the deck, and God, I saw it. It must have been 60 meters tall, probably bigger underneath. That's what they say about icebergs. And I know that we would have hit that iceberg if it weren't for that man. I ran down to his deck, and I got him, and he said, "Lead me to it, boy." And I did. I ran him to the deck, and as soon as I got there, he began to take off his clothes. I was taken aback a bit. But he removed his clothes in one single swoop. It was just, they were there, and then they were off. He braced against the railing of the ship, and he flung himself into the water with the weight of a whale. The water splashed. I don't know how he did it. He's like a torpedo. He was under the water, and I stepped back, and there stood next to me was Thomas Andrews and Captain Smith himself. And I don't know much about maritime law or anything, but this was uncouth. I don't doubt that. So we watched. We watched in avid patience, some kind of finality, and then the iceberg began to move. Slowly, at first to the right, and then quickly, as if it were sailing. I believe to this day Rob Peterson was pushing it from under the water. He saved all our lives. He then sprang forth from the water like a salmon moving upstream during its mating season, and he landed on board the deck, his body glistening like a Greek god's after a wrestling match covered in olive oil. And Thomas Andrews looked at the captain and said, "Had Rob Peterson not moved that iceberg, this ship would have sank, Captain. I don't doubt that." But no one on board the deck clapped. They were all taken aback. This fish man, like a Greek god, had moved an iceberg, which we thought was impossible. That's what did it. That's what pushed him beyond his breaking point. Rob Peterson gave the whole crew one fist. He shook it, and he jumped back in the water again. We should have known then that that was the end. We could hear from the bottom, below the water, the sound of right hooks and left hooks pounding against the bulkhead walls. By God, he was fist-fighting the Titanic. It was at that point that Thomas Andrews looked at the captain and he said, "Mr. Captain, this is the end of the Titanic. Start evacuating." Now, I'm not exactly very good at Irish accents, but I think he said something about the ship going down. I don't know much. We started to board the lifeboats. I pretended to be a woman. That's how I survived. In fact, I still pretend to be a woman to this day. Rob Peterson, as far as I know, died with the Titanic. He's not still alive. He couldn't be. He fist-fought the Titanic and pushed a iceberg 60 kilometers. He couldn't be alive. Is he alive?